The summer sun shone brilliantly over New Geneva, headquarters of the United Earth Council, when the first shadow passed across the city. Citizens looked up, shielding their eyes against the glare, as a massive crystalline vessel slid into position above the sprawling diplomatic complex. The ship's surface refracted sunlight into prismatic patterns that danced across buildings and streets below. Emergency sirens wailed. Military jets scrambled. Global defense networks activated within seconds, but the alien vessel made no aggressive moves. It simply hung there, silent and imposing, its hull thrumming with energy that disrupted communications across 4 continents. "All attempts at contact have failed, Madam Secretary," reported General Hayes, his weathered face grim as he addressed the hastily assembled Security Council. "Our signals bounce back. Whatever their technology, it's beyond anything we've developed." Secretary General Amara Chen nodded, her expression carefully controlled despite the fear gripping everyone in the room. "And their capabilities? Unknown, but the energy readings suggest they could level major cities without significant effort." The massive view screen dominating the chamber's far wall suddenly flickered to life. The humans fell silent as a figure appeared, tall and powerfully built, with scaled skin that shifted between deep crimson and burnished gold. 4 muscular arms crossed over an armored chest as luminescent yellow eyes surveyed the council members. "People of Earth," the being spoke, its voice resonating with surprising clarity despite its alien vocal structure. "I am Supreme Warlord Khazar of the Talic Imperium. We have studied your civilization for 1 full stellar cycle before making our presence known." Diplomatic staff rushed to activate translation protocols, but the alien continued in perfect English, suggesting they had been monitoring Earth's communications for some time. "The Talic Imperium spans 7 systems. We have encountered 12 spacefaring species in our expansion. Some serve, some trade. The difference is determined by a sacred tradition older than our recorded history." Khazar's upper arms extended in a formal gesture, while his lower arms remained crossed. "The combat of worthiness." Screens worldwide displayed the same transmission as panicked citizens watched from homes, public squares, and refugee centers. In a remote cabin nestled in the Colorado Rockies, former Army Ranger Jackson Reeves leaned forward, studying the alien's movements with narrowed eyes. "One champion from your world will face our undefeated warrior Krell in ritual combat," Khazar continued. "The rules are simple. If your champion survives for 3 Earth minutes, we will recognize humanity as worthy of respect and trade relations. Should your champion fall before that time, the alien scales shifted to midnight blue. Your world's resources will be harvested for the greater glory of the Imperium." The Security Council erupted in protests and questions, but Khazar raised all 4 arms for silence. "You have 48 hours to select your champion. The combat dome will manifest at these coordinates." A map appeared, highlighting a remote section of the Sahara Desert. "Choose wisely. The future of your species depends upon it." The transmission ended. As global leaders scrambled to respond, Jackson Reeves replayed the recording, focusing intently on the alien's movements. Something about the way Khazar gestured nagged at him. A pattern in the coordination between upper and lower arms, a momentary hesitation between specific motions. "It can't be that simple," he muttered, rewinding again. "But if I'm right..." Reeves reached for his phone. The world needed a champion, and he had just spotted their only possible advantage. Chaos erupted across the globe. Military commanders from every nation proposed their strongest fighters while intelligence agencies scrambled to analyze the limited footage of the aliens. In Beijing, Moscow, and Washington, special forces units ran combat simulations against hypothetical 4-armed opponents. The results were universally discouraging. Even our strongest fighters would be at a severe disadvantage, General Hayes reported during the emergency session 12 hours later. "The alien physiology suggests at least triple our strength-to-weight ratio, and the extra limbs provide overwhelming offensive capability." Secretary General Chen pinched the bridge of her nose. "What about weapons? Surely our technology. Warlord Khazar transmitted the full rules an hour ago, interrupted Ambassador Okafor. No weapons, no armor, no performance enhancements of any kind. They've developed scanning technology to detect any violations. He swallowed hard. They've made it clear that cheating will result in immediate planetary bombardment. The massive view screen displayed profiles of the top candidates, Olympic champions, martial arts grandmasters, decorated special forces operators. None inspired confidence against what they glimpsed of Krell in the brief demonstration footage. "We need to try diplomacy again," suggested the Chinese representative. "Surely there's room for negotiation." The Russian delegate shook her head. They've rejected 17 communication attempts. This combat trial appears central to their cultural identity. As the debate intensified, a communication request flashed on a secondary screen. The technical officer frowned. "Ma'am, we're receiving a call from a civilian line. It's been flagged as potentially relevant by 3 separate AI systems." "We don't have time for," General Hayes began. "Put it through," Chen ordered, desperation edging her voice. The screen displayed a weathered face with calculating gray eyes. "This is Jackson Reeves, former Army Ranger and combat instructor for Special Operations Command. I've analyzed the Talek combat footage, and I've identified exploitable weaknesses in their fighting methodology." Skeptical glances circulated around the table. "Mr. Reeves, we have teams of experts," Hayes started. "With respect, General, your teams are approaching this wrong. You're looking for ways to match their strength. That's impossible." Reeves leaned closer to his camera. "The Talek evolved with 4 arms. Their entire combat system is built around that physiology. It creates specific movement patterns and, more importantly, predictable blind spots." He played back footage of Khazar's demonstration, highlighting subtle coordination patterns between the aliens' upper and lower arms. Their neural pathways developed to manage 4 limbs simultaneously. It creates microsecond delays between specific movement combinations, delays a properly trained human fighter could exploit. "You're suggesting you could defeat their champion?" Ambassador Okafor asked incredulously. "I'm suggesting I could survive 3 minutes," Reeves clarified. "I spent 15 years developing adaptive combat systems specifically designed to overcome superior opponents through pattern recognition and neurological exploitation." Silence fell across the chamber as the implications sank in. "This is absurd," muttered the French representative. "We cannot stake Earth's future on one man's theory about alien physiology based on seconds of footage." Reeves' expression hardened. "Then stake it on this. Your current candidates are approaching this as a contest of strength. They'll all fail. I'm approaching it as a puzzle to be solved." He paused, letting his words settle. "And I've already solved part of it." Secretary General Chen studied his face, searching for any sign of deception or delusion. Finding none, she made the hardest decision of her career. "Mr. Reeves, can you be in New Geneva within 6 hours?" "I'm already packed." His calm certainty sent a ripple of hope through the chamber. "And I've brought my analysis. You'll want your xenobiologists to review it immediately." As the call ended, General Hayes leaned toward Chen. "Madam Secretary, are we seriously considering this?" Chen watched the tactical simulations continuing to project defeat after defeat. "We're not just considering it, General. We're betting humanity's future on it." The United Earth Council transformed its central chamber into an analysis center. Holographic displays showed every frame of available Talek footage, while xenobiologists, combat specialists, and neurologists debated theories. At the center of this controlled chaos stood Jackson Reeves, methodically breaking down alien movement patterns on a transparent screen. Their 4-armed anatomy creates predictable attack sequences, Reeves explained, highlighting a particular movement. When their upper right arm strikes, the lower left follows within 0.3 seconds. Every time. It's hardwired into their neuromuscular system. Dr. Eliza Ward, the lead xenobiologist, nodded slowly. Their evolutionary path would require different motor cortex development. Four-limbed coordination would follow specific neural pathways. Exactly, Reeves traced another pattern, and they've never faced a two-armed opponent before. Their entire combat system assumes symmetrical capabilities. He demonstrated a particular defensive stance. See this guard position. It leaves a vulnerability no four-armed fighter would ever exploit. But a human. General Hayes still looked skeptical. You're betting Earth's future on neurological theory. I'm betting it on observable fact, Reeves countered. Run the simulation again with the parameters I've provided. The AI combat prediction displayed two figures, one human-shaped, one Talic, engaged in ritualized combat. Previous simulations had shown the human fighter overwhelmed within seconds. This time, using Reeves' insights about timing vulnerabilities, the human avatar survived past the 3-minute mark. Secretary General Chen studied the results. It's still theoretical. We have limited footage to analyze, which is why I need to train against the best approximation we can create, Reeves said. Build me four-armed training drones based on what we know of their physiology. I have 36 hours to internalize their patterns. Meanwhile, aboard the crystalline vessel, Krell prepared for combat. The massive warrior's scaled skin rippled between deep purple and black as he practiced against training drones. His four arms moved with devastating precision, each strike powerful enough to shatter reinforced alien alloys. The human representative has been selected, reported Sub-Commander Verex. They've chosen a military trainer rather than their strongest fighter. Krell didn't pause his practice. Curious. Show me. The holographic display revealed footage of Reeves arriving at the council headquarters. Krell studied the human's movements with professional interest. Efficient motion, minimal wasted energy. He understands combat fundamentals. He poses no threat, Verex dismissed. Our preliminary scans show human bone density and muscular strength are vastly inferior to Talic physiology. From the corner of the training chamber, xenobiologist Solara watched silently. Unlike her warrior colleagues, she had studied human neural mapping with growing concern. Supreme Warlord, she finally spoke, I've detected anomalies in human neuroplasticity that warrant further analysis. Khazar entered the chamber, his scales shimmering with anticipation. Explain. Human brains form new neural pathways more rapidly than any species we've encountered. Solara displayed comparative brain scans. They adapt to new movement patterns at 5 times the rate of Talic warriors. Khazar dismissed her concerns with a wave of his other arms. Adaptation requires time. This combat will be measured in minutes, not days. With respect, Warlord, Solara began. Enough, Khazar interrupted. The human selection is irrelevant. The combat of worthiness has never been lost by a Talic champion, regardless of opponent. He turned to Krell. Prepare for glory. Tomorrow you add another world to our Imperium. As the warriors left, Solara studied the human footage once more. Something in Reeves' analytical gaze troubled her deeply. He wasn't watching the Talic movements with fear, but with understanding, as if deciphering a code others couldn't see. Dawn broke over the Sahara Desert, painting the dunes in gold and amber. Where there had been only empty sand the previous day, a massive structure now stood, a perfect hemisphere of translucent material that seemed to capture and amplify the morning light. Military perimeters established a 10-kilometer exclusion zone around the alien construction, though satellites revealed no entrance points in the seamless structure. Inside the United Earth Council's command center, Jackson Reeves completed his final preparations. He wore simple athletic gear, breathable compression shirt, lightweight tactical pants, and minimalist training shoes. Nothing that could be interpreted as armor or technological enhancement. The latest atmospheric readings from the arena show they've adjusted the environment to match Talic homeworld conditions, Dr. Ward reported. Gravity approximately 1.3 times Earth normal. Atmospheric pressure 18% higher. Temperature regulated at 32 degrees Celsius. Reeves nodded unsurprised. Another calculated disadvantage. You don't have to do this, Secretary General Chen said quietly. We've evacuated critical personnel to hardened facilities. If the worst happens, it won't. Reeves interrupted, his voice calm. I spent my life studying how to overcome superior opponents. This is just the ultimate test of that principle. He checked the time. We should go. I don't want to give them any excuses. The transport shuttle approached the gleaming dome as global viewership numbers reached unprecedented levels. 5 billion humans watched, their collective future hanging on one man's analysis of alien movement patterns. Upon landing, a section of the dome's surface rippled like water, creating a temporary entrance. Reeves stepped through alone, the passage ceiling behind him. Inside, a circular platform of polished black stone formed the combat area, surrounded by terraced seating filled with Talic observers. Their scales shifted through colors, expressing anticipation, excitement, and predatory interest. At the highest point, Supreme Warlord Khazar sat on an elevated throne. The human champion arrives, his voice resonated throughout the chamber. Approach the circle of honor. Reeves walked forward, studying every detail of the environment. The slightly higher gravity pulled at his muscles. The air felt thick and warm, everything designed to favor Talic physiology. From the opposite side, a massive door arised open. Krell emerged to thunderous approval from the Talic audience. The warrior stood nearly 9 feet tall, his 4 arms encased in ceremonial gauntlets that amplified his already impressive musculature. His scales rippled between deep crimson and obsidian as he entered the circle. Behold Krell the undefeated, Khazar announced, champion of the Talic Imperium through 73 combats of worthiness. The alien warrior towered over Reeves, studying him with predatory yellow eyes. You face me without fear, Krell observed, his voice surprisingly controlled. Admirable, if misguided. Reeves maintained neutral positioning, already observing the minute coordination patterns between Krell's 4 limbs. Just focused on the task at hand. Khazar rose, extending all 4 arms. The rules remain as stated. Survival for 3 Earth minutes earns diplomatic recognition. Defeat before that time means your world submits to Talic authority. He activated a holographic timer visible to all. No weapons, no outside interference. Combat continues until submission, incapacitation, or time expiration. The dome's transparency adjusted, allowing those outside to witness the confrontation. Global defense systems remained on highest alert, though everyone understood their futility if the Talic chose aggression. Begin on the ceremonial tone, Khazar declared. May honor guide your strikes. As the alien tone sounded, Krell moved with surprising speed for his size. Reeves centered his breathing, watching not just the attacks coming toward him, but the neurological patterns behind them. The future of humanity depended on what happened in the next 3 minutes. Krell launched forward with explosive power, the stone floor cracking beneath his feet. All 4 arms moved in a coordinated attack pattern designed to overwhelm any defense. His upper limbs swept wide while lower arms thrust directly forward, a combination that had shattered opponents across 7 star systems. To the Talic audience, the human appeared hopelessly outmatched. To the billions watching from Earth, their champion seemed impossibly small against the alien warrior. Even military analysts winced at the speed and power of Krell's opening assault. But Reeves didn't retreat defensively as expected. Instead, he stepped forward at a precise angle, moving directly into what appeared to be the most dangerous position. The unexpected maneuver caused Krell's upper right arm to adjust its trajectory by mere centimeters, exactly as Reeves had predicted. That fractional adjustment triggered the neurological compensation pattern Reeves had identified. For exactly 0.3 seconds, Krell's lower left arm delayed its strike to maintain balance. In that minuscule window of opportunity, Reeves slipped between the converging attacks, appearing to glide through impossible spaces between the alien's limbs. The Talic audience fell silent, their scales shifting to colors of confusion. Krell immediately pivoted, all four arms reconfiguring for close-quarters combat. He unleashed a flurry of strikes that would have overwhelmed any opponent relying on traditional defensive techniques. Reeves moved with economic precision, each step and shift calculated to exploit the tiny neural delays between Krell's limb coordinations. He wasn't attempting to match the alien's strength. He was exploiting the fundamental architecture of four-armed combat methodology. "Impossible," muttered Sub-Commander Varix as he watched from the observer's platform. "The human is anticipating attack patterns that took Krell decades to master." Xenobiologist Sulara leaned forward, her scales paling. "He's not anticipating. He's reading the neurological signatures in Krell's movements." The fight intensified as Krell's attacks grew more aggressive. The massive alien employed combination strikes that had never failed him before, yet the human continued to navigate between them with unnerving precision. 15 seconds had passed, and Reeves remained untouched. Frustration flashed across Krell's scales. He committed to a powerful overhead strike with both upper arms, a technique that sacrificed speed for unstoppable force. For any four-armed opponent, the only viable response would be a specific defensive posture using all limbs for bracing. But Reeves wasn't four-armed. Instead of bracing, he stepped inside Krell's guard at the exact moment the alien's weight shifted forward. With perfect timing, Reeves executed a sweeping maneuver targeting the previously identified vulnerability in Talic balance dynamics. The massive warrior staggered, momentarily destabilized by the unexpected counterattack. In that critical moment, Reeves struck with surgical precision, his open palm impacting a nerve cluster beneath Krell's armored scales, exactly where the alien's unique physiology created a vulnerability their own species never needed to defend. Krell froze mid-motion, his neural pathways temporarily overloaded by the precisely calibrated strike. His massive form toppled sideways, crashing onto the stone platform with seismic impact. The alien champion lay completely immobilized, his scales cycling through colors of shock and disbelief. The timer displayed 29 seconds. Absolute silence fell across the arena. Supreme Warlord Khazar rose from his throne, all four arms rigid with disbelief. The Talic audience remained frozen, their color patterns expressing emotions no human had witnessed before. Earth's communications channels erupted in confusion and hope as billions struggled to process what they just witnessed. In the command center, military leaders stared at each other in stunned silence. Reeves simply stood at the center of the combat circle, calm and centered, waiting for the Talic to acknowledge what had just occurred. Supreme Warlord Khazar descended from his elevated position, his scales cycling between disbelief and controlled fury. The arena remained utterly silent as he approached the combat circle where Earth's champion stood beside the still immobilized form of Krell. "What trickery is this?" Khazar demanded, his voice reverberating through the dome. "No species has ever defeated a Talic champion in ritual combat." Reeves remained composed. "No trickery, Warlord. Just applied knowledge of biomechanics and neural response patterns." The alien leader's upper arms made a dismissive gesture while his lower arms clenched into fists. "Impossible. Our warriors trained from emergence for combat supremacy." "And that training created predictable patterns," Reeves explained. "Four-armed combat methodology develops specific neural pathways that create microsecond delays between coordinated strikes. Against another four-armed opponent, those delays are mutual and irrelevant. Against a two-armed fighter who understands them." From the observer platform, Xenobiologist Solara approached, her scales a thoughtful blue-green. "Supreme Warlord, I believe I can verify the human's claim." She activated a holographic display showing neural mapping of Talic physiology compared to human motor function. "Our evolutionary path optimized for power and multiple limb coordination. Human evolution prioritized adaptability and pattern recognition." Krell's scales gradually shifted from shock to a deep indigo as neural function returned to his limbs. The massive warrior pushed himself upright, regarding Reeves with newfound respect. The human found weaknesses no Talic could exploit, because no Talic could perceive them. The crowd of alien observers began an undulating murmur, their scales flickering through colors expressing confusion, respect, and uncertainty. Centuries of Talic martial superiority had been challenged in 29 seconds. Secretary General Chen's voice came through the communication system. Warlord Khazar, the terms of the combat of worthiness have been fulfilled beyond the required duration. Earth awaits your formal recognition as promised. Khazar's scales rippled with conflicting emotions before settling into a formal pattern of deep crimson with gold highlights, the traditional Talic acknowledgement of binding obligation. The combat has concluded with unprecedented results. As dictated by ancient law, the Talic Imperium recognizes humanity as worthy of diplomatic standing. A wave of relief washed through command centers across Earth. Defense systems stood down from imminent launch status as the existential threat receded. Reeves addressed the Talic leader directly. Your culture values physical prowess and combat excellence. Humanity respects that, but our strength lies in observation, adaptation, and finding solutions where others see only overwhelming force. A different kind of strength, Krell acknowledged, fully recovered and standing at his impressive height. One our species has not encountered before. Xenobiologist Solaris' scales brightened with scientific curiosity. Supreme Warlord, this outcome presents unprecedented opportunities for exchange. Human neural adaptability combined with Talic physical capabilities could advance both our species. Khazar studied Reeves with calculating eyes. You did not attempt to kill Krell when he was vulnerable. Explain this restraint. Because survival was the objective, not dominance, Reeves answered. Humanity seeks cooperative relationships rather than conquest. We've learned through our own history that diverse approaches create stronger outcomes than homogeneous ones. The concept seemed to challenge Khazar's worldview. His scales shifted through thoughtful patterns before he made a formal gesture with all four arms, the Talic equivalent of acknowledging a paradigm shift. The combat of worthiness has never revealed such unexpected insights, the warlord admitted. Perhaps there is wisdom in diversity we have not yet explored. As the formal proceedings concluded, humans worldwide celebrated their unexpected reprieve. Yet in secure briefing rooms, Earth's leaders began to realize this wasn't just survival. It was the dawn of a fundamentally new relationship with the cosmos. 3 weeks after the historic combat, the newly established Talic Human Diplomatic Center buzzed with activity. Located in neutral orbital space between Earth and the crystalline vessel, the station represented the first tangible outcome of humanity's unexpected victory. Jackson Reeves, now serving as Earth's primary liaison, studied holographic displays showing Talic territorial boundaries across nearby star systems. The silicon-based hive intelligence has consumed 3 of your outer colonies, he observed, tracing the expansion pattern. Their resource consumption follows mathematical progressions rather than strategic objectives. Krell, appointed as Talic military liaison, nodded gravely. His scales shifted to tactical blue. The Nexus Collective operates without emotion or hesitation. Our traditional combat superiority means nothing against their drone swarms. Xenobiologist Solara manipulated the display to show comparative physiologies. The Talic evolved for direct confrontation, overwhelming force against identifiable opponents. The collective evolved for distributed intelligence and resource assimilation. 2 fundamentally different approaches to survival. Just as humans and Talic represent different evolutionary solutions, Reeves noted, which is precisely why cooperation offers advantages neither species could achieve alone. Secretary General Chen entered the briefing room with Supreme Warlord Khazar. The Talic leader's scales now displayed formal diplomatic patterns when interacting with humans, evidence of genuine cultural adaptation. The Security Council has approved the Joint Defense Initiative, Chen announced. Earth will contribute adaptive tactical systems and neurological interface technology. Khazar made a formal gesture with his four arms. The Imperium will provide advanced propulsion systems and material sciences. Unprecedented cooperation, but necessity drives innovation. On the primary view screen, reports streamed in from the first joint training exercises. Talic warriors were learning human adaptive combat methodologies, while human special forces studied four-armed combat techniques. The integration challenged fundamental assumptions on both sides. The warriors resist changing techniques that have served for generations, Krell admitted. Yet they cannot argue with results. Human adaptive methods have already improved combat efficiency by 37%. Reeves studied footage of the training. And your physiological insights have helped us understand limitations in our own fighting systems. The exchange benefits both species. Solara activated a new display showing hybrid technology development. The neural interface adapters we've developed allow Talic and humans to share sensory information directly, essential for joint combat operations against the collective. More than that, Reeves added, it creates understanding impossible through conventional means. Experiencing how each species perceives reality fundamentally changes perspectives. The evidence supported his assertion. Throughout the station, humans and Talic worked together with increasing synchronicity. Initial wariness had given way to professional respect and, in some cases, genuine camaraderie. The combat of worthiness was intended to identify species worthy of alliance. Khazar reflected, his scales showing contemplative patterns. Never before has it revealed such complementary strengths. Because you assumed strength meant only one thing, Chen suggested, physical dominance. As humans once did, Reeves acknowledged, our history is filled with cultures that valued warriors above all else, only to discover different kinds of strength were needed for different challenges. Khazar's scales shifted to a pattern Reeves had never seen before. There is wisdom in your perspective. The Talic have conquered many worlds, yet we face extinction from an enemy immune to our traditional strengths. The station's alert system, activated as new intelligence arrived from the frontier. Long-range sensors detected massive collective fleet movements toward key Talic worlds. Their resource acquisition algorithms have accelerated, Solara reported, scales paling. Projected arrival at central Talic worlds within 60 days. Reeves studied the tactical display, mind already formulating adaptive response patterns. Then we have 60 days to demonstrate what our alliance can accomplish. Khazar made a formal combat gesture with all four arms. The Talic have never fought alongside another species as equals. This will be unprecedented. Unprecedented approaches are exactly what the collective won't be able to predict, Reeves replied. And that gives us our first tactical advantage. The Nexus Collective's invasion force materialized at the edge of the Talic home system, a vast swarm of crystalline structures pulsing with cold silicon intelligence. Traditional Talic defense fleets moved to intercept, their formations perfect by ancient military standards. But this time, something unprecedented accompanied them. Joint human-Talic hybrid vessels deployed in asymmetrical patterns, their movements unpredictable by conventional tactical algorithms. Aboard the command ship Adaptive Response, Jackson, Reeves, and Krell coordinated the defense through a neural interface bridge that allowed instantaneous tactical communication. Collective processing centers are distributed throughout their fleet structure, Reeves observed through the enhanced sensor array. They're expecting us to target their largest nodes, standard Talic doctrine. Krell's scales shifted to tactical blue as he absorbed the human insight. So we target the connecting pathways instead, disrupt their distributed intelligence rather than attempting to destroy processing capacity. In the engineering section, Solara monitored the experimental weapon systems developed through human-Talic collaboration. Adaptive frequency disruptors ready. These will exploit the silicon neural pathway's vulnerability to quantum state changes, something the collective has never encountered. Supreme Warlord Khazar, and Secretary General Chen observed from the Strategic Command Center as the unprecedented battle unfolded. The collective deployed attack patterns that had devastated three previous civilizations, expecting the same sequential talic response that had failed before. Instead, they encountered hybrid tactics that combined talic power with human adaptability. Small, agile human-designed craft darted between massive talic warships, creating defensive matrices that continuously reconfigured based on collective responses. Each adaptation forced the Silicon intelligence to recalculate, creating processing delays the Alliance immediately exploited. The collective is attempting to isolate our command structure, Reeves noted as attack drones swarmed toward their position. They've identified our neural bridge as a priority target. Krell's massive form shifted to combat readiness, a predictable response based on their binary tactical assessment, deploying countermeasure alpha. Decoy neural signatures activated across the fleet, confusing the collective targeting systems. Meanwhile, specialized infiltration units developed by human engineers penetrated the Silicon fleet's communication networks, introducing adaptive viral algorithms that replicated faster than the collective could isolate them. Their coordination efficiency has dropped 60%, reported the tactical officer, her neural interface linking directly with talic weapon specialists. Deploying Phase 2 disruptors. The battle raged for 27 hours as the Silicon intelligence attempted to adapt to strategies it had never encountered before. Each collective adaptation was met with an unpredictable counter-response, creating cascading failures throughout their distributed consciousness. When the final collective flagship fragmented under concentrated fire, silence fell across the command deck. Humans and Talic alike processed the unprecedented victory through their shared neural network. "We have prevailed," Khazar stated formally, his scales displaying ancestral victory patterns. The Talic Imperium owes its continued existence to this alliance. As does humanity, Chen acknowledged. Alone, neither of our species could have withstood the collective's expansion. In the aftermath, representatives from 17 previously hostile species requested diplomatic contact with the Human Talic Alliance. The combat demonstration that had begun as a prelude to conquest had instead created a new paradigm for interstellar cooperation. 1 month later, Reeves stood beside Krell as they formalized the Adaptive Defense Accord, a mutual protection agreement extending throughout known space. The document combined Talic ceremonial traditions with human diplomatic innovations. "When I challenged you to last 3 minutes in combat," Krell remarked, "I never imagined it would lead to this outcome." Reeves smiled. "The true strength of humanity has never been in how long we can survive a fight. It's in how we transform challenges into opportunities for growth." Supreme Warlord Khazar, now serving as co-chair of the new Galactic Cooperation Council, addressed the assembled representatives. "Throughout our history, the Talic measured worthiness through combat prowess alone. We now recognize this as limiting. True worthiness comes from the ability to evolve beyond one's limitations, something humanity demonstrated in 30 seconds of combat and continues to demonstrate each day of our alliance." As 17 different species formalized their membership in the expanding alliance, the story spread throughout explored space. How humanity's different kind of strength had transformed potential conquest into unprecedented cooperation, ensuring survival not through dominance, but through diversity.